The crystal chandelier above the dining table sparkled like a crown of diamonds, but all I could hear was the sharp sound of my mother-in-law's voice cutting through the room. "Get out of my house," she screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You've embarrassed this family enough." The room fell silent. The expensive guests she had invited for dinner stared at me as if they were watching a public execution. I looked around slowly. The marble floors. The luxury furniture. The portraits on the walls. Everything in this mansion had become a symbol of power for my husband's family. And yet none of them knew the truth. Not even my husband. Especially not my husband. I stood from my chair and placed my napkin neatly beside my untouched plate. My mother-in-law, Veronica, smirked. She thought she had one. She thought I was about to leave in humiliation. But then I smiled. A small smile. The kind that appears right before a storm. "Are you sure?" I asked calmly. "Absolutely," she snapped. "You are nothing without my son. Nothing. This house belongs to him. This lifestyle belongs to him. Everything you have came from him." Around the table, several guests nodded. After all, everyone knew Daniel Sterling. CEO of Sterling Technologies. Young billionaire. Business genius. Magazine cover favorite. Future political donor. The man everyone wanted to impress. The man I married 5 years earlier. The man who no longer held the position everyone thought he did. I folded my hands. "Interesting," I said. Veronica crossed her arms. "What's interesting?" I looked directly into her eyes. "The fact that you still think your son is CEO." The smile disappeared from her face. For a second. Just 1 second. Then she laughed loudly. Several guests joined her. "What nonsense," she said. I reached into my purse. Daniel suddenly shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That movement told me everything. He knew what was coming. "Emily," he said quietly. "Don't." I turned toward him. For the first time that evening, I saw fear in his eyes. Not anger. Not arrogance. Fear. The room became still. "What is she talking about?" one guest asked. I pulled a folder from my purse. The same folder I had carried for 3 days. The same folder containing documents that could destroy the carefully crafted image of the Sterling family. "Daniel," I said softly, "would you like to tell them?" His jaw tightened. "No." Veronica rolled her eyes. "This ridiculous performance has gone far enough." I opened the folder. "Then I will." The guests exchanged confused looks. My husband stood abruptly. "Emily." But it was too late. I placed the documents on the table. The silence became suffocating. 3 weeks ago, I said, Sterling Technologies held an emergency board meeting. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The board voted to remove Daniel Sterling as CEO. Veronica stared. Then laughed again. Lies. I slid the first document toward her. Her smile faded. She picked it up. "Read the first line. Then the second. Then the third." Her face lost all color. "No," she whispered. Daniel closed his eyes. The guests leaned forward. "What does it say?" Veronica's hands began shaking. "No." I answered for her. "It says Daniel was removed from his position due to financial misconduct, unauthorized corporate expenditures, and concealed losses." Gasps spread across the room. One woman nearly dropped her wine glass. "No," Veronica repeated. But this time she sounded less certain. Because she knew the document was real. Daniel remained standing. Frozen. Like a man watching his empire collapse brick by brick. "You're lying." Veronica screamed. I pulled out another document. And another board resolution. Then another. And another. The room erupted into whispers. Daniel's face had become pale. For years he had hidden everything. The failed investments. The reckless acquisitions. The luxury spending disguised as business expenses. The private jets. The secret debt. The company had been bleeding money while he pretended everything was perfect. And when the board finally discovered the full extent of the damage, they removed him. Quietly. Without publicity. Without scandal. At least until now. Why would you do this? Veronica cried. I laughed softly. The irony was almost beautiful. Why? I looked around the room. At least ask what happened before judging me. Nobody spoke. So I continued. 6 months ago, Daniel asked me to leave my own career. The memories flooded back. I had been a successful corporate attorney. I loved my work. I had my own income. My own reputation. My own future. But Daniel insisted. Support me, he said. Focus on family. Trust me. So I did. I sacrificed everything. Because that is what wives do when they believe their husbands love them. Then things changed. Phone calls late at night. Locked office doors. Secret meetings. Anger. Distance. Coldness. And eventually, humiliation. He began introducing me as just a housewife. At first I thought it was a joke. Then I realized it wasn't. He truly believed his success made him superior. And Veronica encouraged every moment of it. She should be grateful, Veronica often said. You gave her this life. As if I were some rescued stray. Not his wife. Not his partner. Not the woman who stood beside him before the fortune. The guests listened carefully now. No one interrupted. Because the truth had begun revealing itself. 1 year ago, I continued, Daniel asked me to review some legal contracts. His eyes snapped toward me. I smiled. Yes. Those contracts. The room became even quieter. I discovered irregularities. Daniel's face darkened. I warned him. I looked directly at the guests. I told him the company was heading toward disaster. The memories were painfully clear. I had spent nights studying reports. Financial statements. Internal documents. Risk assessments. Everything pointed to one conclusion. The company was in trouble. Serious trouble. I begged him to act. He laughed. Then ignored me. Then insulted me. Eventually he stopped listening altogether. Because successful people often confuse confidence with intelligence. And Daniel had become addicted to his own reflection. The board listened, I said. But Daniel didn't. Veronica's chair scraped against the floor. You planned this? No. I shook my head. He planned it himself. The truth hit harder because it was undeniable. Daniel had created every problem. I merely refused to hide them. One guest finally spoke. So who is CEO now? I smiled. That's a good question. Daniel lowered his head. And for the first time in years, I felt absolutely nothing for him. No love. No hatred. Nothing. Just clarity. The board appointed an interim CEO. Veronica stared at me. Who? I slid one final document across the table. She read it. Then froze. The room waited. Nobody understood. Then one guest grabbed the paper. His eyes widened instantly. Oh my God. Another guest leaned over. Then another. Suddenly everyone was staring at me. Not Daniel. Me. Veronica looked as though she might faint. You. I nodded. Yes. The board had appointed me. Emily Sterling. The wife nobody respected. The woman they mocked. The woman they thought depended entirely on Daniel. The woman they had just ordered out of the house. Interim CEO. The room exploded with shock. Several guests stood. Others began whispering frantically. Daniel remained motionless. Because he had known this revelation would come eventually. Just not tonight. And not like this. Veronica looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. No, she whispered. Yes. But how? I smiled. The board wanted someone who understood the company. I paused. Someone who had warned them about the problems before they became disasters. The truth was simple. The board had spent months investigating. Reviewing records. Interviewing executives. Examining emails. They discovered something remarkable. Every warning memo. Every legal concern. Every risk report. Had come from me. Not Daniel. Me. While he was busy appearing on magazine covers, I was quietly preventing lawsuits. While he attended luxury events, I was solving corporate crises. While Veronica praised her son's brilliance, I was cleaning up his mistakes. The board noticed. Eventually they noticed everything. Veronica collapsed into her chair. This can't be happening. But it was. And it was only the beginning. I reached into my purse once more. The final envelope. The one that truly mattered. Daniel immediately knew what it was. His expression changed. Emily. I met his gaze. Yes? Please. The word shocked everyone. Daniel Sterling never begged. Never. Until now. I placed the envelope on the table. What is that? A guest asked. My divorce papers. The room erupted again. Veronica covered her mouth. Daniel looked destroyed. I had prepared them weeks earlier. Not because he lost his position. That never mattered. I would have stayed beside him if he had lost every dollar honestly. I would have lived in a tiny apartment. Driven an old car. Started over together. But I could not stay with someone who lost his character. That was the real bankruptcy. Not financial. Moral. You're divorcing him, someone asked. I nodded. Yes. Daniel stared at the papers. His hands trembled. For years he believed I would never leave. That I needed him. That I had nowhere else to go. Now he realized the truth. He had needed me far more than I needed him. You can't do this, Veronica whispered. I stood slowly. The same woman who had entered the room expecting humiliation now stood taller than ever. No, I replied. I can. Then I looked around the mansion. The house everyone thought belonged to Daniel. The house Veronica used as a weapon. The house she had ordered me to leave. A small smile appeared on my face. There's one more thing. The room held its breath. Veronica looked terrified. I handed her another document. She read it. And nearly collapsed. The mansion was owned by a family trust. A trust recently restructured after Daniel's removal. And because of certain legal protections written years earlier. Control of the property no longer belonged to Daniel. It belonged to the trust's acting administrator. Me. The realization hit Veronica like lightning. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened. No words came out. I walked toward the door. Then stopped. Turned around. And delivered the final sentence. The sentence that nobody in that room would ever forget. You told me to get out of your house. I glanced around the mansion. Then smiled. The problem is. Veronica's face went completely white. It isn't yours. The silence that followed was priceless. No screaming. No arguments. No insults. Only truth. Pure, undeniable truth. For years they measured people by titles, wealth, and appearances. They assumed power belonged to the loudest person in the room. They assumed success belonged to the man on the magazine cover. They assumed I was weak because I stayed quiet. But quiet people often hear everything. See everything. Remember everything. And when the moment finally comes, they reveal everything. I walked out of the dining room while shocked guests watched in complete silence. Behind me, Daniel remained standing beside the shattered remains of his empire. Beside a mother who had spent years worshipping a throne that no longer existed. And ahead of me was something far more valuable than wealth. Freedom. Not the freedom that comes from money. But the freedom that comes from knowing exactly who you are when everyone finally stops underestimating you.